with our understanding of how route parameters can be passed in React Router to enable passing information from one component to another through the route parameters, let's go ahead and update our React application, whereby in the menu component, when we click on any one of the menu items, the dish ID of that item that we click on will be passed to the dish detail component and then can be used to select the specific dish and then render the details of that dish. To get started on this exercise, let's first go to menu component. In the menu component, earlier when the card was being rendered, we had this onClick method. This is no longer available to us because we are not implementing this anymore. So I'm going to remove that from the menu component. Similarly, here when we do the render menu item, this is no longer available to us. So I'm going to be removing that also from the render menu item because that is also not available. Now, how do we update this to pass the link in the specific dish information as a parameter? So this is where we will pull in the link component from React Router DOM. We have already discussed how link works, and we have seen the use of link already in the previous exercises. So going into the card, what I'm going to do is inside the card, I am going to link this whole thing to. So this is where I need to pass the information to my component when this is clicked. And then let me close off that link here. So now this whole thing that is in the card gets enclosed inside this link. So how do I specify this link here? So this is where I say link to. Now, the specific dish itself has its dish ID. This dish ID is the one that I wanted to pass. But then this link allows me to only specify the URL to which I navigate. Now, how do I make use of this dish ID? This is where I can use back quotes. So a back quote means whatever is enclosed inside here. So if I put in a JavaScript value there, that will be evaluated and then that'll replace that value there. So when I say back quote, and inside the back quote, I will say menu / dish ID. That's it. So what happens here is that for each specific dish, the corresponding dish ID value is evaluated here, and this will be substituted by the dish ID value. So if the ID is 1, this will become menu/1. If the ID is 2, it will become menu/2, and so on. So that is the reason for enclosing this in back quotes here. So remember that these are back quotes, not forward quotes. It's very important that you implement this correctly here. Otherwise, your code will show errors. Back quotes, and then this is $dish ID. So when you do this, this will be evaluated and then the corresponding value will be replaced in here. And so that would be the link that we are going to click on. That's it. This is the only change that I need to do to enable us to recognize that link. Now, while we are here, what I'm going to do is I am also introducing some breadcrumbs into my menu component. Now, breadcrumbs we have seen in the Bootstrap course. So breadcrumb allows me to add some information to the top of the menu page so that it's a bit more interesting to look at. So to add that into this, I will add in, along with the card title, I will add in breadcrumb and then breadcrumb item. Both these I will import from React Strap, and then going into the menu being shown here, let me add in the breadcrumb into this view here. So I'll say div class name row and then inside this row I'll say breadcrumb, and we'll say breadcrumb item, and then we will use link to home. We have already seen the use of link earlier, so I don't need to explain this to you anymore. And then this would be home, and close the link and close the breadcrumb item. So this is how we add breadcrumbs to our application. The next one will also be a breadcrumb item. And for the second one, we will also apply the active attribute to it. And then we'll say menu and then breadcrumb item. So this is how we add a breadcrumb to our page here. And then down below here, I'm going to say div class name call 12. So I'm going to add in a title to my page here. And the title would be added in as H3 menu. This is just to give a nice little view for my menu page here. So my menu component is now updated, and also I have added in a breadcrumb to the menu page. So now that I have added in the breadcrumb to the menu page, now I need to go into the main component and then now make use of the dish that came in. So when the menu item is clicked, that will come in here as a dish value here. So in here, let me implement a function component called dish with ID. And this function component will, again, when this is invoked, this will get the parameter that is required. So going down here, I will menu here. I'm going to add in one more route there. And then, so we'll say route path slash menu slash colon dish ID. So notice that this is the key that I am giving to the parameter here, colon dish ID, and we'll say component is dish with ID that I just implemented. It's just more convenient to do it separately there, so that's why I added in that new parameter here. Now also notice that this URL also is matching that URL. Now in order to prevent when the switch is looking to see which of these routes should be taken, in order to prevent the switch from selecting both, I have added in the exact here, meaning that this should be exactly slash menu, nothing following that. But otherwise, this will slip down into this one here, and then this will match this. So if the switch comes in with slash menu only, if I don't put that exact in place there, then it will match both of these, and that will lead into a problem. Furthermore, if I define the routes one below the other, when switch looks around for a match, it will match the very first one that it encounters. So that's why if I put slash menu, it will automatically match this one, and so it will never reach this point anymore. But then a slash menu following that with a slash something will not match this because this says exact, and so that will come down here and then will match this particular route. And so now I am able to lead that into the dish with ID there. So interesting way of arranging the way the routes are configured there so that I can extract the information. Now for this dish with ID, as I said, the route will pass in 3 props here, and I am only interested in the match prop there, so I'm just going to extract out the match object there from here. So this will get match, location, history, but I'm going to ignore location and history, and I'm going to extract out only the match part of the thing there. And then what is this going to do? This component is going to return Now this is where I can use the dish detail component that I have already rendered earlier. So the dish detail component that I've already constructed. So note that up here I already have imported dish detail component. I had used it in the earlier version of this application, so that is already available to me. For the dish detail, what are the properties that I need to pass in? So for the dish detail, I will pass in the dish, the specific chosen dish here. Now, what is the dish? This is available by doing this state dishes filter. You have already seen the use of this before. This state dishes filter, and then we'll say dish ID equal to. Now, how do you extract out and match the things? So this is where we're going to say, now note this, parse int. So parse int is a JavaScript function here. When you specify a string and the radix, what is the base of the number? So here it will be a number 10 system. That string will be converted into the corresponding integer value with that base there. Okay, so this is converts a string to an integer. So that's what parseInt allows me to do. Now, what is the string that I'm going to convert? So this is where I'll say match params. So notice match that came in. This match object has the params here, would contain the dish ID here as the one of the properties of the match params there, and then this would be base 10 integer. So convert this. This would be a string that will come in, and this string, convert that to a base 10 integer here. So that's what we want there. Base 10 integer here. So this would extract out that, and then because the filter here will return an array there. So the first item from that array, so that's why I'll say 0 here. First item from that array will be extracted out and then sent back as the dish property for dish detail. In addition to the dish, I also need to pass in one more item there. Now, along with the dish, now previously the comments were also part of the dish, but now I have extracted the comments out from the dish. So that's why I have to explicitly pass in comments also to my dish detail. How do I pass in comments? This is where I'll say this state comments. So notice that in the state I have dishes and comments separately. So from the comments, what I'm going to do is I am going to extract out all those comments. So how do you extract out? You do filter, and then we'll say comment. So extract out all those comments for which comment.dish ID is exactly that. So that is how I extract out the dish ID there, and then I'll pass in here. I will pass in all the array as such. So this filter will extract all the comments for which the comment.dish ID matches that value, and so that will be an array, and that's fine. Comments are passed in as an array anyway. So if you look at the comments.js file, you will notice that for each one there is an ID there. Of course, in addition, there is a dish ID here, and this is the dish ID which I'm going to compare against the dish ID that is passed in as the route parameter for me. So the dish ID 0, and then notice that if you go down, you will see that there is a different dish ID for the other comments. So for each comment, it will have a dish ID associated identifying which dish this comment corresponds to. So from this whole list of comments, I will extract out only those comments that pertain to dish ID being equal to 0. So there will be an array of comments from there, and those comments I will extract and then pass that as a parameter to dish detail component. There you go. Having gone through all those steps, now you begin to see how many different things that you need to change in order to make things work. But that's implementation details. Okay, so now I need to go and fix up the dish detail component in order to use the parameters that I'm getting in here, or the props that I'm getting in here. So going into the dish detail component, in the dish detail component, I will go in and then I will also import link from React Router DOM, because I'm going to use that in constructing the breadcrumb here. So I will also import breadcrumb item. I will add breadcrumbs to the dish that I render here also. Now I will go in and come into the details here, down below here. And so here when I say render dish, I will pass in the dish props.dish here. And then here when I said render comments, I was passing this in as props.dish.comment because comments were part of the dish earlier. Now since comments are coming separately on their own, I can just change it to props.comments, and then that'll pass the comments in to render comments. So the render comments should work just like before, and the props.dish should work just like before. Now, having done this, let's add in the breadcrumb to this. So how do you add in a breadcrumb to this? So in here, let me go in and then indent this here. Now I'm going to go into the menu component and then copy this breadcrumbs from the menu component to save myself the trouble of having to type all these things here, and then come into the dish detail component, and then right here inside the container I will paste in those breadcrumb items there, and then we'll fix up the breadcrumb items to render this thing. So here it says breadcrumb link to home, and then the breadcrumb item active. Now instead of menu here, I'm going to here render props.dish.name. So you see the props.dish contains my dish, and then so I'm going to use the dish's name here in the breadcrumb. And similarly here also, this menu, I will replace that with props.dish.name. So that way at the top, the title would be the name of the dish itself as the title. Now in addition to this, here we have one link to the home. We will add in one more link to the menu here. So we'll say link to menu and menu. So that will take us back to the menu there. Actually, I don't want to send you back to home from the details of the dish. I want you to send you back only to the menu. So the first breadcrumb item will only render /menu. So you'll be able to only go back to the menu from the details of the dish here, which is fine. So with these changes, now my dish detail component is also updated appropriately. Now I will also add in the breadcrumb to the contact component. So going to the contact component, I'm going to import breadcrumb. Again, this I import from React Strap. We'll import breadcrumb and then breadcrumb item. Sorry. So this should be breadcrumb with a small c. This would be breadcrumb item. Both of these I will import from React Strap, and within the contact component, before I fix that, let me just go to the menu component and then copy this all over again from the menu component, come back to the contact component, and inside the container I'm just going to insert that into place. Save myself the trouble of having to type this thing again, and then we'll just go and fix that up to render the appropriate thing. So breadcrumb link to home, and this is contact us here. And one more thing to import here is link from React Router DOM. Save all the changes and then look at our application. Coming back to our application in the browser, you can see that the home component is rendered as such. Let's go to the contact component. And when you go to the contact component, you can see the breadcrumb being rendered at the top here, and then the contact us title being rendered here. There is a line separating the contact us from the rest of the code here. So that is how the contact us is rendered. Let's go to the menu. So in the menu, you can see that you have a breadcrumb item and the menu being rendered here, and then each of these is now turned into a link here. So let's click on this one to see the details. So now when you click on that, you notice that you have now gone into this new view here where the details of the dish is rendered. This is still the dish detail component that is rendering the thing. So I haven't changed much in the code there. Minor fix to that code, and then the dish detail component is rendering the menu. Look at the URL here. So notice how the URL says /menu/1, 1 being the ID of this particular dish. So you see how the URL with route parameters can be used to route to a specific dish item. So here again, I can click on menu and go back to the menu here. And then I can click on another dish and then come back to the details of that specific dish here. I can go back to the menu item and then go back to home. So now our single page application is almost complete except for the About Us page. That is second assignment for you. With this, we complete this exercise. So in this exercise, we have seen how we can use route parameters to pass information to our React router, which enables us to render a dish. And so the information about the route parameter can be passed into that dish, or rather to passed into a component and then used there to appropriately render the view. With this, we complete this exercise. This is a good time for you to do a git commit with the message Single Page Applications Part 2.